Why do Sigma males, the mysterious lone wolves of modern society, so often lose the very people they love the most? Why do their relationships end in distance, silence, or heartbreak, even when they crave deep connection? To understand this paradox, we must step into the mind of one of the darkest philosophers in history, Arthur Schopenhauer. Known as the philosopher of pessimism, Schopenhauer believed that human life is built not on happiness but on suffering, not on peace but on endless struggle. His vision of love, desire, and human connection is brutally honest, and when applied to the life of a Sigma male, it reveals a painful truth. The very qualities that make a Sigma strong and independent also condemn him to solitude. Sigma males are admired for their independence, their rejection of social games, and their ability to walk their own path. They do not seek validation, they do not bow to authority, and they do not crave the spotlight. Yet behind this strength lies an invisible cost. In love, in friendship, and in family, Sigmas often end up losing everyone they hold dear, not because they want to, not because they are cruel, but because of a deeper reality that Schopenhauer warned about. Love is an illusion, desire is suffering, and freedom comes at the price of loneliness. In this exploration, we will uncover why Sigma males lose the people they love, guided step by step through Schopenhauer's harsh truths. We begin with the core of his philosophy, the endless hunger of human desire. Part 1. The nature of desire. Schopenhauer built his philosophy on one fundamental principle: the will to live. This will is not rational, not conscious, and not under our control. It is the blind, unstoppable force that drives all living things to survive, to reproduce, and to chase after endless desires. According to him, every human action, from eating, working, loving, or creating, is nothing more than the will expressing itself through us. This is where the tragedy begins. Because the will is endless, satisfaction is impossible. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another rises up to take its place. You get what you want, but immediately you want something else. In this cycle, true peace is never achieved. Happiness is nothing more than a pause between two waves of longing, and suffering is the permanent state of existence. For Sigma males, this truth is magnified. Unlike others who may find comfort in social circles, traditions, or conformity, Sigmas often choose solitude. They live outside the herd, resisting the rules and expectations of society. But even they cannot escape the will. Inside every Sigma is the same hunger for connection, intimacy, and love. The difference is that while most people surrender to this hunger willingly, Sigmas fight against it. They crave love but resist dependence. They desire closeness but fear the chains of commitment. They long for intimacy but guard their freedom above all else. Imagine a Sigma male who falls in love. At first, he may give himself fully, intensely, passionately, almost recklessly. For a moment, he feels alive in a way solitude never gave him. But soon the weight of expectation sets in, the need to compromise, to give up pieces of himself, to become part of a we instead of remaining an I. For most people, this is natural, but for a Sigma, it feels suffocating. Love becomes a battlefield between desire and independence, and slowly, almost without realizing it, the Sigma withdraws, creating distance between himself and the one he loves. Schopenhauer would argue that this is not a personal failure but a law of existence. To love is to desire, and to desire is to suffer. Sigmas who see the world with clear and often cold eyes cannot blind themselves to this truth. They sense, even unconsciously, that every attachment carries within it the seed of suffering. And because of this, they often step back, sometimes too far, until the relationship collapses. Part 2. The illusion of love. If Schopenhauer's view of desire was grim, his view of love was even harsher. To him, romantic love was not a gift, not a miracle, but a deception of nature. He believed that when we fall in love, we are not acting freely. We are being used by the species itself. Love, in his eyes, was nature's trick to ensure reproduction. Behind every passionate romance is not personal destiny, but biology forcing two people together to create the next generation. We think we are choosing our partners out of free will, guided by values, attraction, or spiritual connection, but Schopenhauer argued that it is the will of the species manipulating us, making us believe in eternal love when in truth, the flame is temporary and designed only to serve life itself. Once the biological purpose is served, or once the illusion fades, what remains is disappointment, boredom, or emptiness. For Sigma males, this realization is devastating. They pride themselves on seeing through illusions, rejecting lies, and cutting through the noise of society. So when they encounter Schopenhauer's truth about love, they cannot unsee it. They begin to question everything. What if love is just a trick? What if the promises of forever are just chemical reactions in the brain? What if devotion and sacrifice are illusions that serve not the individual but the species? Most people are content to live within the illusion. They accept love as real. They build families, they invest in bonds, even if Schopenhauer would say it is all smoke and mirrors. But the Sigma, ever the outsider, refuses to play along. He sees too much, questions too deeply, and in doing so, he steps away from the illusion that sustains others. This detachment creates a painful paradox. On one hand, the Sigma values truth above comfort, preferring the harsh clarity of reality to the sweet lie of romance. On the other hand, this very clarity isolates him. While others cling to each other in the illusion of love, the Sigma dismantles it with philosophy and leaves himself standing alone. And so those he loves drift away. Not because he does not care, not because he is incapable of love, but because his insight into the nature of love prevents him from surrendering to it fully. Schopenhauer would say that the Sigma suffers not because he is weak, but because he sees too clearly. He pierces the veil of romance and finds only the machinery of desire and suffering beneath it. And once that vision is clear, holding on to love becomes almost impossible.
Part 3.
Freedom versus attachment. One of the defining traits of a Sigma male is his relentless pursuit of freedom. He is the lone wolf, unwilling to be caged by social expectations, by shallow traditions, or by authority. Freedom is his oxygen, and without it he feels suffocated. Yet this very obsession with independence becomes the sharpest weapon against his relationships. Schopenhauer warned that attachment is always double-edged. On one side, attachment promises comfort, security, and love. On the other, it restricts the individual, tying him down to responsibilities, demands, and sacrifices. For the Sigma male who lives for autonomy, these attachments quickly begin to feel like chains. What others see as intimacy, the Sigma experiences as confinement. This is where tragedy unfolds. The people who love the Sigma often misinterpret his withdrawal. To them, it feels like coldness, rejection, or even betrayal. But for the Sigma, it is a desperate attempt to protect his freedom, to breathe without being consumed by another's expectations. Schopenhauer would argue that this conflict is inevitable because love always demands sacrifice, and the Sigma male, by nature, resists any sacrifice that compromises his individuality. Here lies the paradox. The Sigma loves deeply, but he cannot surrender completely. He longs for intimacy, but he fears dependency. His heart reaches out, but his spirit pulls back. And over time, the tug-of-war tears relationships apart. Lovers feel neglected, friends drift away, family bonds weaken, and the Sigma is left standing alone, not because he is incapable of love, but because his highest value, freedom, is incompatible with the chains of attachment. Part 4. The Weight of Pessimism. Arthur Schopenhauer is often called the philosopher of pessimism because he stripped away all illusions of human happiness. To him, life was not a gift but a burden, a cycle of desire and disappointment, a constant dance between pain and temporary relief. For most people, this outlook is unbearable. They cling to optimism, to hope, to comforting illusions because these are the only shields against despair. But Sigma males are not like most people. They do not blindly accept the narratives society sells. They are naturally skeptical, analytical, and detached. This makes them more vulnerable to Schopenhauer's worldview. Instead of resisting pessimism, they embrace it. They see the world as he did, cold, indifferent, and ruled by suffering. The effect of this outlook on relationships is devastating. While others hold on to hope, Sigmas often expect disappointment. They approach love with caution, convinced that it will eventually end in loss. They approach friendship with distance, certain that betrayal or separation is inevitable. They approach family bonds with skepticism, knowing that even blood cannot escape conflict or misunderstanding. This pessimism becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because the Sigma expects loss, he behaves in ways that create it. He withholds parts of himself, keeps his guard up, avoids full vulnerability. Those who love him sense this wall and over time grow tired of fighting it. Schopenhauer would argue that this is not mere psychology but the truth of life itself. All bonds are temporary, all love is fragile, and all joy fades into suffering. The Sigma simply accepts this too early, too completely, and in doing so, he accelerates the very loneliness he fears. Part 5. Emotional distance. Love and connection require emotional openness. To keep relationships alive, people must be willing to share their fears, their hopes, their insecurities. But for the Sigma male, emotional exposure feels dangerous. He is deeply private, self-reliant, and protective of his inner world. He rarely reveals his struggles, and when he does, it is only in fragments. His emotional distance slowly erodes intimacy. At first, those around him may admire his strength, his mystery, his independence, but over time, the mystery turns into frustration. Partners feel shut out, friends feel untrusted, and even family members feel disconnected. The Sigma may think he is protecting himself, but in reality, he is creating invisible walls that push others away. Schopenhauer's philosophy deepens this problem. If love is an illusion and suffering is inevitable, then why expose one's heart fully? Why risk vulnerability when the end is already written in pain? This reasoning leads the Sigma to withhold even more of himself, to keep his emotions locked away, to love cautiously instead of completely. But love cannot survive on caution alone. Without vulnerability, intimacy dies. Without openness, bonds dissolve. And so, those who once admired the Sigma's strength eventually walk away, feeling unseen, unheard, and unloved. The Sigma in turn often blames himself. He wonders why people keep leaving, why love slips through his fingers, why loneliness follows him everywhere. But in truth, the answer lies in his very nature. By guarding his freedom, by embracing pessimism, by keeping his emotions hidden, he ensures that loss becomes his constant companion. Schopenhauer would say this is not failure but destiny. To see the truth too clearly is to walk alone. Part 6. The price of independence. The Sigma male is defined by his independence. He refuses to be defined by others, refuses to be controlled, refuses to live by the rules of the herd. To many, this is his greatest strength. He is admired for his self-reliance, his ability to walk alone, his resistance to manipulation. But as Schopenhauer would remind us, every strength carries within it a hidden weakness, and independence is no exception. Total independence comes at a price: isolation. To live without needing others means sooner or later to live without keeping them. The Sigma's refusal to compromise often alienates those around him. Lovers may admire his strength but grow tired of his distance. Friends may respect his individuality but drift away when they realize he will never fully open up. Family may love him but never truly feel close. Schopenhauer's philosophy explains why. The world, he argued, is not built for individuals but for the will of the species. Society exists to maintain connections, reproduction, and survival. To stand outside of that, to live independently, detached, and self-sufficient is to step away from the very forces that bind people together. In other words, the Sigma's independence is not simply personal choice. It is rebellion against the will of life itself. And like all rebellion against nature, it comes with punishment. That punishment is loneliness. Thus, the Sigma often finds himself surrounded by silence. He does not lose people because he hates them or because they hate him, but because his path, by design, leads away from the crowd. Independence gives him strength, but it also ensures that love, in its traditional form, will rarely stay by his side. Part 7. The Cycle of Loss. If we put together Schopenhauer's philosophy and the life of the Sigma male, a painful pattern emerges, a cycle of loss that repeats again and again. It begins with desire, that hunger for connection which all humans share. The Sigma meets someone, feels drawn to them, and allows himself to hope. Then comes the illusion of love, the powerful wave that convinces him that maybe this time will be different, maybe this bond will last. But soon freedom clashes with attachment. The Sigma begins to feel the weight of demands, the slow erosion of his independence. He withdraws, becomes distant, guards his emotions. His natural pessimism tells him that the end is inevitable, and so he prepares for it even before it arrives. His partner senses this distance, feels unloved, and eventually walks away. The bond shatters. The Sigma is left alone once again, reflecting on what went wrong. He blames himself, he questions the meaning of love. He buries himself in independence. Yet despite his clarity, despite his philosophy, the hunger for connection returns. The cycle begins again. Desire, illusion, freedom, loss, over and over like waves crashing against the same lonely shore. Schopenhauer would argue that this cycle is not unique to Sigmas. It is the fate of all humans, because the will to live condemns us all to endless longing. But for Sigmas, the cycle is sharper, harsher, and lonelier, because they refuse to blind themselves with illusions. They see too clearly, and in seeing, they lose. Ending. Schopenhauer's dark gift. So why do Sigma males lose everyone they love? The answer, when seen through Schopenhauer's eyes, is both tragic and profound. They lose because they love freedom more than attachment. They lose because they see through the illusions that others depend on. They lose because their strength, independence, and clarity also make them difficult to hold close. But there is another side to this truth. Schopenhauer did not believe in fixing the will, in defeating desire, in rewriting the cycle of suffering. Instead, he believed in transcending it through understanding. To know that love is an illusion is painful, but it is also liberating. To see that suffering is inevitable is dark, but it also frees one from false hope. For the Sigma male, losing everyone he loves is not simply tragedy, it is also revelation. It forces him to face the deepest truth of existence, that happiness cannot be found in clinging to others, but in mastering oneself. Loneliness in this light becomes not a curse, but a kind of enlightenment. In the end, Schopenhauer's harsh truth is this: the Sigma male walks alone not because he is unworthy of love, but because he dares to see beyond it. And while the world may call it loss, he knows it is simply the cost of living freely, seeing clearly, and refusing to bow before illusions. And so the story closes where it began, with the Sigma male, walking his solitary path, admired from afar, misunderstood up close, forever caught between the hunger for connection and the calling of freedom. He loses everyone he loves, yes, but in that loss, he gains something few others ever do: the dark gift of truth.